Evening everyone, welcome to the live stream. Hope you're well tonight. This is my left eye, my name's Lefty. It's a great pleasure to be with you this evening. Hope you're well. We've got a lot to get through, just going to wait for a few minutes as usual and wait for a few people to arrive in the chat. Let us know how you're doing as always. If this is your first time on the channel or on a live stream, please do subscribe, that way you can get onto the chat just 60 seconds later. And yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts and everything this evening. Got quite a jam-packed show for you. Hope you're well. So yeah, let's dip over to Keith's Lounge, as usual, for a bit of fondue. Okay, it has been quite the week, hasn't it? Yeah, things are definitely escalating in the Middle East. We're certainly going to be talking about that. How can we not? And you might have noticed we've got a poll up tonight as well. Whether that will escalate into something further, a regional war. I'd like to hear your thoughts as well. So please do fill out the poll when you come in. It's the first time I've done a poll on the chat, actually. Odin Allfather, welcome back. Welcome back to the stream. Yeah, I'd agree with that. The situation's highly unpredictable at the moment. In fact, I've still got, as well as a lot to get through. There is breaking news probably coming out even as we do the live stream, so we're going to be dipping into that. It's turning into a real, pardon my French, shit show at the moment. There's a great deal of concern. But yeah, we will be going into that, as well as a few other things as well. Of course, there have been more resignations in the Labour Party. Some 20 councillors have quit in Lancashire. I'm going to be talking about that. Also, speaking of sort of pushback against Labour, and specifically Keir Starmer, 3 people have been charged with public order offences after a protest at Keir Starmer's house. We'll talk a little bit about that, as well as the sort of non-story, as it were, this Angela Rayner house row, which we'll touch on, as well as the situation in the Middle East, of course. So lots to get through, as well as a bit of a channel update, which I'm going to be mentioning in just a sec. So yeah, for everybody else who's joined us, please feel free to use the chat. Keep it polite and cordial, as usual, you wonderful people. If you've not done so already, please consider helping to support the channel as well with a membership. We've got 2 tiers of membership, one specifically tailored around live streams, and you can get hold of those for just 99p. Start enjoying the perks, including static emojis. I'm going to, as always, just post a few examples in the chat. And of course, the more members we get, I should say, the more static emojis will become available. That's the way this whole YouTubey thing works out, apparently. So, very warm welcome back to any of our existing members as well. If you're watching on a replay, please do add your comments. I do my best to keep up with as many comments as possible on the channel. Also, if you'd like to support the channel watching on a replay, you can hit the super thanks, or you can go to our Buy Me a Coffee page. Links are in the description of the broadcast and the channel itself. Thanks a lot for your continued support, everybody. Also, if you've got a particular point you'd like to get my attention, please do use the super chat if you're listening live. If you are listening live as well, this stream comes to you ad-free, apart from my odd shill now and then, just to set my stall up and help promote the channel. But in terms of YouTube ads, if you're watching live, this will be completely ad-free. There will be ads if you're watching on a replay, but we're going to come on to that shortly, because that actually ties in with the channel updates, which I'll get onto in just a moment. Been a very busy week. Yes, we are coming just a bit later than usual at 8 PM instead of the usual 7. Hope that's not been too much of an inconvenience for you all. Thanks a lot for coming back. Okay, well, I'll just quickly dive in because there's a lot to get through. I'll dive in with the just the quick update on the channel. Just as I was talking about memberships, etc. just then. For some reason, I'm still looking into it. I've requested a review. My live streams have actually been demonetized recently, with the exception of the Prime Minister's questions live stream. And I think one of the suspected reasons, I think, is the very scene before your eyes right now. I'm kind of doing a bit of an experiment here, if you'll just follow with me. So because of YouTube's new artificial intelligence rules, I think that their AI has flagged Keith's Fondue Lounge, etc. And Rachel Reeves's side party that regular live stream viewers will be familiar with as well. They've flagged that as what could be considered a realistic looking scene where I've manipulated somebody's image with AI, for example. But I think it's clear to all that this is just a bit of a parody, a sort of almost a moving meme, as it were. So with me only using these on the other live streams, not PMQs, I'll put it down to that. I have requested a review, but at the moment, just to let you know, the live streams have been demonetized, so please do consider helping to support the channel. I will be finding out, hopefully in the next couple of days, what that's all about, if my appeal's been successful and whatnot. But that's all I can put it down to, really. I know we do touch on some heavy graphics, and when I'm uploading my videos, I'm very careful with how I describe it for the advertisers, etc. So we'll just see what happens. So that's the latest channel update. Anyway, just to quickly fill you in on that. So fingers crossed, we'll still be able to continue using these scenes, which come courtesy of the Agitator as well, I should say. Quick shout out to the Agitator. If you don't follow him already on Twitter, then please do. He's provided this scene for us, as well as a few others that we use now and then on my left eye. So yeah, I'm Lefty. I'm your host for the evening. We've got articles, clips, etc. to get through. Please do get involved in the chat. And we're going to go over first to talk about those councillors I mentioned, the 20 resignations of Labour councillors in Lancashire. We are, of course, coming up to the local elections in just a matter of weeks, so this would certainly be a good litmus test, as it were, for what might happen at the upcoming general election, which generally tends to be a good indicator. Yeah, the situation in the Middle East will probably be the sort of, the bulk of tonight's topics. There's a lot to get through there, so we'll just go on to that first. And that's all for now, Keith. Thank you very much. So here we are. Yeah, 20. That's quite a lot. That's quite a lot. And there's been quite a lot of revolt from actual genuine socialists within the Labour Party against Starmer recently. A lot of them have been waking up a little bit too late, some people have said, but perhaps better late than never. Let's see what all this is about. This is Councillor Mohammed Iqbal. He's amongst those that have resigned from his role. It's just a short article, so I'll just dive straight in. 20 Lancashire councillors have resigned their Labour membership in protest over the party's leadership. Oh, Keith, what have you done? What have you done? The councillors each sit on Pendle Borough Council, Nelson Town Council or Briarfield Town Council. They claim Sir Keir Starmer's leadership no longer reflects their views and say that they will now serve as independents. Labour Party said its focus was on winning the next general election. Of course, power just for power's sake, as usual. The mass resignation is believed to be the largest defection under Turkey's leadership. In November, 11 councillors quit the party in Burnley over his decision not to push for a ceasefire in Gaza. Of course, you'll remember we mentioned that on previous streams as well. Councillor Mohammed Iqbal, who's one of the 20 councillors to resign from the party, told the BBC, in the last few weeks there's been a culture developing from the National Labour Party that seemed to want to control anything that any councillor wants to say. Yeah, just quickly to come in and remind you of the awful deselections that have been happening, this lack of democracy within the party, this so-called Starmerism. Even people who've been elected multiple times have been deselected, and pro-Starmer candidates have been parachuted in, not even from the local area in most cases, just sort of parachuted in, expected to just win the local people's favour, and that's been going on for quite some time now. You know, he's in his 4th year as party leader, and ever since then he's absolutely completely destroyed what was just a few years ago such a great party. Anyway, I digress. So the party nationally seems to want to control who can stand where and when. We don't think that's right, so we have taken the difficult decision to resign, he added. A party spokesperson said, that was probably Pat McFadden, the Labour Party's focus is on winning the general election so we can improve the lives of those we are elected to serve. Just pretty robotic boardroom talk, as always, from Labour spokes. 4 of the 20 councillors set to stand for re-election in May. Candidate lists will be available on council websites by 4 p.m. On the 8th of April. That was just a few days ago, according to the local electoral commission. So that's just the latest in resignations. Let us know what you think about that in the chat. I'm not surprised. One of the big names recently that quit was, of course, Owen Jones. There's a video on the channel about that, of course, for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And the numbers just keep going up and up. This is a record, according to the article. So that kind of brings us on to the other article I was going to show you. I am trying to thread all of these pieces together nicely on the live stream tonight in terms of which order I do things. We will go to some clips very shortly, but I just want to quickly go through this other article about a protest at Starmer's house itself. I'll just check you can see that okay, yeah. So 3 people have denied public order offences after a protest at Keir Starmer's home, one of his homes, I imagine. This is, of course, a pro-Palestinian protest. Youth Demand, who, if you're a member of the channel, we put a video out about the spraying action at the Labour HQ, and they even went inside the lobby and sprayed it all red. Youth Demand are a sort of not splinter group. That's a ridiculous phrase to use. They're kind of a faction of Just Stop Oil that obviously involves young people and students, for example. So just a bit of background on them. They're fairly new in terms of an organisation in themselves, but that's just what they're about. So the children's shoes is becoming a common way of protesting, just to highlight the numbers of children that have been killed in this awful occupation in Palestine, and more specifically southern Gaza. As I'm sure that everybody's aware, the numbers now looking very, very morbid indeed, over 40,000. And of course, as always, we must remind you that over 50% of those are women and children. And these are just the confirmed deaths as well. Unfortunately, still many bodies remain under the rubble. So the prosecutor, David Burns, told Westminster Magistrates Court that the incident had really affected Sir Keir's wife. Now, this is clearly, you could see from the picture, a non-violent protest. They've placed shoes onto the driveway in front of the front door, it would appear, and that really isn't threatening in any way. So he said she'd returned from shopping with her son, but could not go home because she felt intimidated. And generally, I want to throw that out to everybody as well. We brought this up on the show before. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. Are you okay with protests actually being carried out at MPs' houses, or opposition MPs' houses, specifically in this case? Let me know what you think about that. A lot of people would say that they should be held responsible, be held accountable for their decisions in Parliament. There isn't exactly a great amount of scrutiny or discipline in the House of Commons at the moment. It's amazing what many prime ministers and even opposition members have gotten away with over the years, not least of all most recently pertaining to Keir Starmer, his hijack on that SNP motion as well. So a lot of people feel that if they're not properly scrutinised through the proper channels, through the proper methods, although there are obviously select committees and other committees, blah blah blah, but that they feel that that is so ineffective that they have to take it to literally to the doorsteps of the politicians themselves. So are you for or against that in terms of protest? So, well, under the condition that it is non-violent, for example, that there's no violence involved, or, for example, damage to the property, of course, things like that. So just let us know your thoughts. So just a little bit from the actual demonstrators themselves. Leonora Ward, who's 21 of Leeds, Zossia Lewis, 23 of Newcastle, and Daniel Fermentin, 24 of Leeds, have been charged with Section 42 of the Criminal Justice and Police Act 2001 and for breaching court bail. I would assume that would be for some earlier action, perhaps, that they were under conditions not to be in a certain area, for example. That's what that might be. I was just speculating there. That's not confirmed. So in footage posted by the group, demonstrators urged Sir Keir to use, quote, use his influence to stop the UK sending arms to Israel and to block further oil and gas licences from being issued. Labour have, of course, come out and said that the licences would not be revoked under Starmer should he win the next election. So just a bit of background on that. On Tuesday, Rishi Sunak condemned the incident, saying, "I don't care what your policies are, no MP should be harassed at their own home. We cannot and will not tolerate this." Of course, last year, Greenpeace did a demonstration at Rishi Sunak's house. Initially, it was mistakenly taken for a Just Stop Oil action, but they covered Sunak's house, as you remembering that, black cloth, while it was confirmed that I believe they were away on holiday. They weren't at the house. Again, he's got several properties, being almost a billionaire himself, and his family collectively being billionaires, of course. So that's obviously why he obviously isn't in favour of that. There's been growing concern generally about the safety of MPs since the outbreak of the war in Gaza. Well, really, that's just something that Lindsay Hoyle tried to bring up as an excuse to pass through Labour's amendment on that aforementioned motion that the SNP put forward on a ceasefire. That was, of course, despicable and cowardly of him to do such a thing, to try and use racism or terrorism as a political football is, of course, repugnant, and I've got no affection for the Speaker of the House myself. So, but another Tory, just back to the article, Mike Freer said he'd be standing down as an MP, saying death threats and an alleged arson attack on his office had become too much. In February, the government announced a £31 million package to protect democratic processes, including money to give MPs extra security. Not too sure about the details of those death threats that Mike Freer's referring to specifically. So, well, we'll see what happens. It could be a while before these three people face trial. I'm not sure what the outcome of the action at Rishi Sunak's house was either, to be honest. I don't think they've actually stood trial yet either, because this is quite new. This is pretty, well, in this era, in this day and age, whatever you want to call it. Excuse me. So I think we'll just nip over to a couple of clips now. Let's see, where shall we start? Yeah, just part way through that quick roundup before we do get into the nitty gritty of the Middle East situation. This is something that that might tickle you. I saw it on social media earlier, and I really hope this is genuine. I really do. Let me know if this is genuine or not as well. Reform UK, who are obviously just Farage's latest grift, should we say, and Richard Tice as well, trying to poach votes from the Conservatives, of course, have released this. Well, it's from the Reform Party anyway, and they've got a mascot apparently. I really hope that this is genuine. So, while in the States they have the comic book character Captain America, Reform have come up with this. Well, I'm sure they think it's a zinger, but let us know your thoughts in the chat. Captain Britain, and he's got the Reform UK badge on his chest as well. So I really do hope that this is for real, because this is just, God, it's pretty cringe. Yeah, if you can confirm or whatever that this is genuine, I really hope that it is, because this is just, I mean, who's this supposed to appeal to? Is this the reaction to the thing the other week with the changing of the colour of the cross on the back of the collar on the England shirts? Perhaps. Wouldn't surprise me. Perhaps they're going to be releasing a series of comic books, being somewhat of not a joke party themselves, not in terms of the Monster Raving Looney Party or whatnot, or your Lord Bucketheads, but accidental comedic candidates. So that's just something I came across. I wanted to, yeah, quickly throw that your way. Right, where to next? I've got quite a bit lined up, to be honest. So, we're going to go to Philippa Whitford, who's an SNP Member of Parliament. Just quickly want to go back to issues with the Labour Party. Issues with the Labour Party. Issues with the NHS in England compared to in Scotland. But also just bringing it back to Labour, also how West Streeting certainly wouldn't be any better should Labour win the next election. Most people are expecting that he'll continue the sell-offs and whatnot, and yeah, I count myself among them definitely. But I just thought that this was a brilliant statement from Philippa, so let's just check that out.
Now, I think it's quite striking that we've got no NHS strikes in Scotland. And yet in England, you've got junior doctors and consultants going on strike. And that's contributing to the backlog, to the waiting list. So maybe instead of handing billions over to private companies to make profit out of the NHS, actually settling these issues, investing in the infrastructure of hospitals, and investing most importantly in the people would serve them better in the long term. And when they talk about these kind of backlogs, all four health services face those challenges. But it's telling that both on cancer and accident emergency, the Scottish NHS is outperforming the other three. So there, it's not that England has some kind of magic system. If anything, the fragmentation and competition driven by the Lansley reforms in 2013 made it less efficient. So, just focus on investing, paying and retaining and recruiting the staff you need. And that's how you'll actually increase the productivity in the NHS. Unfortunately, Labour are not promising anything different from the Tories, quite the opposite. They're also talking about big public sector cuts. So why would you cut the NHS and give money to private companies instead? That doesn't make sense, and I don't think that has the support of people anywhere in the UK.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. Can't argue with that. Just a few things to get through there. Just bring that
I think
up again.
it's quite
So, yeah, Philippa Whitford there from the SNP. So I'll just try and find a more flattering place to pause it. And you'll see every week in PMQs, we'll be back with that on Wednesday, by the way. But you'll see very often Sunak will snipe back in Parliament and try and claim that in Scotland the NHS is being run into the ground, basically, but it's actually the opposite that's true. Scotland is running their NHS very well, and of course that goes uncorrected in Parliament, as a lot of other things do. As I mentioned earlier, there's no real scrutiny, there's no real sort of accountability in a lot of circumstances. But also, as she mentioned towards the end, that's not going to change under Labour. The continued privatisation, the continued sell-offs. And this kind of started with Labour in a way, under Tony Blair. The NHS used to be one great big thing. Tony Blair created basically financial markets within the NHS itself, departments buying, and so the NHS is basically buying and selling from itself, and he's chopped it up into tiny pieces so that each of those pieces can be privatised and sold off, and that's going to be completely the same under Wesley Streeting, who has been one of, just while we're on the subject about him, who's one of the Labour MPs who's actually been appearing on the, pardon my French, the Sun's sort of online news show as well, which is obviously absolutely disgusting for any Labour MP to consider. Keir Starmer's also been working with that awful rag as well. So, yeah, no surprise that Wesley's just going to continue these sell-offs, which would be when you look at how bad the American healthcare system is. I dread to think what it'd be like if we had a similar system here in the UK, as always. Oh yeah, just a quick shout out to that TV for the clip. You can see that's brought to you from them as well. So it started with Blair. It'll continue with Streeting. I've got no doubt about that. And the next time you hear Sunak stand up in Parliament and accuse the SNP of running the NHS into the ground there, just remember those words from Philippa. I do think that's quite pertinent. We'll just go back to a quick article. This next one's I just want to get this one out of the way as well. Like I said, quite a lot to get through on tonight's live stream. And quick reminder for anyone who's just joined us, please do hit the thumbs up button help us out on the algorithm. And if you've not considered joining the channel, please do so. You can do that from just 99p, or consider using Super Chat, Super Thanks, etc. You can find the Buy Me a Coffee page in the link of this video and the channel description. Thanks a lot for being here. So there has been this row over Angela Rayner selling a house, and where she was living at the time comes into it when she sold the house, whether she paid the right amount out of the profits from the sale. It's kind of a non-story, and I'm surprised to see the BBC are sort of going along with it. It just seems to have been dragged up by the Tories. I'm not defending Labour at all here. This is just a sort of comment on the media, as it were. And I know that anyone who follows Max's channel as well might have seen his video earlier today where Laura Kossenberg was called out on trying to treat this story as a serious issue. But pretty much what it comes down to is that she's said to have made £48,500 profit from selling a former council house under the Right to Buy scheme. But appears she's been given, she appears to have given 2 different addresses when she re-registered the births of two of her children in 2010, following her marriage to Mark Rayner, listing her then husband's home, which has led to this kerfuffle. However, there appears to be something within the law itself that means that it was such a long time ago, 2010, that she couldn't be prosecuted anyway. So it's just a bit of sort of deflection and diffraction from the Tories, as it were. This has kind of been going on for, a couple of weeks at least. So, yeah, it's just a shame to see. Just a shame to see that this has been taken serious by the media recently. There's a lot more serious things to report on, of course. Just one more thing to get onto before we get onto the Middle East. You might have seen this one as well today. So hundreds of the survivors from the terror attack at the Manchester Arena are looking to sue MI5. A public inquiry found MI5 missed a significant chance to take action that might have stopped the bombing by Salman al-Baidi. More than 250 survivors of the arena bomb are involved in the suit. 22 people died, hundreds more injured in the blast in May 2017. That is, of course, still, Manchester is still in mourning over this. For any of you who are in the northwest, or you come to the northwest, the city was certainly united in grief, and the B symbol, the Manchester B symbol, certainly summed that up. And you'll see the B symbols on the back of people's cars. You'll see a lot of B references all the way through the city. Of course, the bus network is the new bus network under Andy Burnham, named after bees, and that was it was awful. For any of you who are from the region, you will no doubt remember that. And there are, of course, great tributes to the 22 people who died in the train stations in Manchester as well. So legal teams representing many survivors injured in the explosion say they've submitted a group claim to the IPT, that's the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. MI5 said it would not comment on ongoing legal proceedings. In March 2023, the Director General of MI5, Ken McCallum, said he was profoundly sorry that the security service did not prevent the Manchester Arena attack. His comments followed the findings of a public inquiry which concluded MI5 missed a significant chance to take action that might have stopped the bombing. He was, of course, on the radar. He was flagged, and they missed an opportunity to stop him at the Ariana Grande concert that took place in 2017 there. The chairman of the inquiry, Sir John Saunders, said the intelligence could have led to the suicide bomber Salman al-Baidi being followed to a car where he stored his explosives. Mr. McCallum, excuse me, said he regretted that such intelligence was not obtained. He said, gathering covert evidence is difficult, but had we managed to seize the slim chance we had, those impacted might not have experienced such appalling loss and trauma. So the suit is being filed with Hudgell solicitors Slater and Gordon, and Brodie Jackson Centre are the three lead firms in action now being brought against MI5. This says, but there's been no comment from MI5 as it mentions as it's an ongoing matter. Yeah, I do hope if the if there has been any negligence, as it were, on the part of MI5, that those unfortunate victims do get justice. That was a terrible event, and those who died will obviously forever be in the memories of Manchester and everybody in the UK as well. So just wanted to quickly go through that story as well. Right, so next, excuse me one moment. So, yeah, we'll start to get into the ongoing situation in the Middle East, this further escalation. Israel, of course, not just occupying and oppressing people in Palestine. Things have now stepped up. They've been attacking Lebanon. They've been attacking Iran. And, of course, a recent attack on a consulate by Israel killed Iranian generals. And now there's been a retaliatory attack from Iran. And this is where things really do risk getting escalated into a wider situation. But first of all, I just want to play a clip from an LBC caller that I came across this week from a pro-Israel member of the public who's called in. And it's just incredible that they can, that they can continue to take the line that they do, the line of excuses, etc. We've been through those many a time on the live stream and in other videos. But this just sort of sums it up, really. And the host actually does a really good job at pointing out why what he's saying is absolute bollocks. So we'll quickly take a look at that and then lead up to the latest.
I guess because in 1945 they took away people's homes forcibly and brutally.
That is another lie. You should.
Well, how is it? How is
Israel was declared war by all the Arab countries.
Right, but Israel wasn't empty, was it? When Israel wasn't empty. There were people already living there, weren't there?
They were all told to leave because everybody, as far all the Arabs were concerned, they thought they were going to walk over Israel and the people would have a bigger sway.
Right, so if somebody came to your house and told you to get out because somebody that needed safety needed it and you wouldn't get any compensation for that, you just had to leave, would you think that was a fair deal?
I don't understand what you're talking. I don't understand that argument at all.
That's the argument you've just presented to me.
A mild remark which doesn't add anything to the argument.
I'm saying if somebody told you that somebody else had a right to your house,
if somebody told me somebody else. I don't talk in.
Well, that is literally the way it is. People get told, okay, this is someone else's house now, and it's someone from Europe or someone from America, not someone who was even born in Palestine. And that's just the way that the occupation's working. This guy is doing his level best to try and stick his head in the sand as though he doesn't know that's happening. But of course he is. Denial's not just a river in Egypt.
If you had to leave, okay,
like
if you
that.
had to leave your house because
That's waffle.
if you were forcibly removed from your house and not compensated for that because it was deemed that land belonged to people who need,
And they're not just forcibly removed. They're often dragged out of their homes and killed or taken away to prison without charge, of course, as well.
needed it for their safety because they had been holocausted by a completely different group of people that had nothing to do with you. Would you think that was
fair?
fair?
You are talking nonsense again. Yet again, you compound all the lies. What about all the?
Well, Anthony, if you're not going to answer my question.
Yeah, she just proceeds to cut him off here.
I'm sorry, I can't continue the call. I guess because in
Astounding. As soon as the facts start to come out, as soon as the reality is presented to him, it's just he pretends not to understand the context of the argument, and then he just calls it waffle. It's just utterly pathetic. But someone who's featured previously on the show, and I hope that you're all familiar with, member of the European Parliament, Claire Daly, certainly has been putting up some good performances recently. This is a bit of a medley or a montage, whatever you'd call it, of some of her appearances in the European Parliament recently. And whoever that caller was, I would urge him to heed these words.
Well, this report has the audacity to claim that the EU always seeks to reduce the risk of escalation. No, it doesn't. We are witnessing the collapse of the post-war system instigated by the US and Europe, all to shield Israel, our outpost, from consequences. It's a rogue state vested in ensuring instability in the region and US geopolitical goals. In the last month, it's bombed Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, all the while claiming it's the victim. It's occupied parts of these countries and bombed them so often that we don't even generally give it a mention. They're doing everything they can. Desperate acts of aggression to provoke a wider conflict with Lebanon, with Iran, with anybody, to draw in the US, to save them from the consequences of their own actions. Illegal, unprovoked, unjustified airstrikes on Yemen. Clearly you couldn't care less about peace in Yemen if you're standing by and seeing civilians being bombed in Yemeni cities who've had nothing got to do with this. 2 weeks ago, Israel bombs Iran's embassy in Syria, an act of aggression against two states, the UN Charter and the Vienna Conventions.
Just want to come in there as well. She's absolutely right in everything that she's saying here. But just a moment ago, she mentioned that Israel is attempting to try to pull the US into this. The tail's trying to wag the dog, as it were. And I think that's completely right. And Nag Yessep, you've pointed that out regarding how you voted in the poll as well. Israel is doing its level best to try and play the victim, of course, despite being the aggressor, and by trying to agitate all of the countries around it into attacking it, they're going to try and play the victim even more. So that's just the tactics that they're using. But they're so blatant. This attempt is so blatant, trying to pull the US in. They really want this to escalate. They really want a wider regional war. They're clearly happy to spend as many civilian deaths as possible in other countries just to achieve the goals, as we've unfortunately seen over the last 6 months. So what they're doing to Palestinians, they certainly do to Iranians, Lebanese, Egyptians even.
Not only no condemnation, but defence of Israel against retaliation. The US has never respected international law. It was always one law for their friends and another for everybody else. Lawless, barbarous acts to inflame the region, when the truth is that the EU has been seriously active, not in preventative diplomacy, but in preventing diplomacy. But after 6 months of throwing international law on the bonfire in Gaza, something is broken. We are in free fall. The very same international law that a horrified world has watched being trampled into the ruins of Gaza, while the EU hands Israel more weapons and cheers on the genocide. They are the ones who have enabled the continuation of Israeli terror. Without them, it would already be over. Strikes on hospitals, normalised. Famine as a weapon of war, normalised. All with impunity. You can't even call for it to stop. You can't even call for a ceasefire. Well, of course you can't, because these crimes against humanity are being carried out with your weapons in your name when you stood with Israel a month ago and you said you'd stand with them now and in the days to come. So don't come in here trying to wipe the blood off with belated concern. It's over. The EU has no moral authority. If you want to sort the situation out, end the genocide. Well, this report...
Fantastic words, as always, from Claire Daly there. Herself and Mick Wallace, always wonderfully outspoken about the ongoing occupation in Palestine. So, obviously, that ties in with the great amount of support for Palestine in Ireland as well. We've seen many protests. We've covered a few of them here on the My Left Eye live stream as well. So it's great to see that solidarity, and it's great to see people actually speaking the truth and just unreservedly speaking the mind in Parliament. So the protests have, of course, been ongoing. Going to be going through a couple of those shortly, from both here in the UK as well as the States, where there were a couple of quite dramatic protests as well. One of them involving Democratic leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. We'll get onto that one eventually. Of course, as always, please do let us know if you have attended any of the ceasefire protests or marches. Please do let us know in the chat your experiences of those. We do our best to keep you up to speed with the latest protests, as always, on My Left Eye. Just before we go on to the next clip, polite reminder, please do subscribe to the channel if you're new listening here. That'll mean that you can post in the chat as well after just 60 seconds. Hit the thumbs up button on the stream, please, just to help us out and reach more viewers like yourselves. You can, of course, help to support the channel with a membership. Those two packages start from just 99p. Some great perks there, including exclusive live streams, exclusive videos, static emojis to use on this live stream, plus more. So please do check those out. You should have a link there just underneath the channel, or you can check it out in our channel description page. Thanks a lot for your continued support. Don't forget as well, you can also add super chat if there's something you'd like me to read out during the stream, or if you're watching on a replay, please do add a comment and consider supporting the channel with a super thanks or buy me a coffee. We're going to go on to London for the first protest. We're going to check out the latest. Of course, very well attended, as always, tens of thousands of people in attendance, and all very peaceful. Great attendance, as always. I think that's, I'm not too sure. I think that could be Embankment in London. Does look slightly familiar. So, these have been taking place in cities all across the world, of course, for the last 6 months, and even before the escalation itself 6 months ago. Just going to go to an interview that on the ground from that protest there, and hear what one of the local residents had to say about why she was there.
My mother died ashamed of what Israel was doing in her name as a Jew to the Palestinians. She'd be turning in her grave at what is being done to the Palestinians, who have been totally dehumanized. Actually, describing Judaism and Israel in the same breath is the greatest anti-Semitism of them all, because Judaism is much better than that, and there are many Jews in this country who do agree with me. Many who have been badly treated, thrown out of the Labour Party and other places for daring to accuse Israel of being racist and actually genocidal. What we all want, we want equality, human rights, dignity, freedom of movement, and the international law to apply equally to Palestinians. Palestinians have been treated like pawns in a game played by the West. America, the UK helped to create Israel, and the UK betrayed the Palestinians right from the start.
Great testimony there, great testimony, and obviously something very personal for this lady, very close to her heart. This clip's from TRT World, by the way, and a lot of people from the Jewish community do feel the same, have similar thoughts, have similar experiences and reasons for being on the protests. Don't let anybody tell you that Jewish communities feel threatened by these so-called extreme marches, as the Tories have tried to label them. The Jewish community has been out in voice in support of Palestine, in support of Gazans, and they condemn this occupation entirely and unconditionally, and they just want to see a ceasefire immediately, and for the race to stop being used as a political football, as it is in this situation, because it's absolute abhorrent. You know, the whole situation's on its head. Israel accused people of racism when in fact their actions are directly racist. Zionism itself is directly racist, and a lot of people in the Jewish community consider Zionism not to be part of Judaism at all, as it obviously contradicts the fundamental principles of the religion itself. So well said, that lady, definitely. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Manchester's protest as well, so we'll just have a little gander at a clip from the protest there yesterday.
Occupation no more! Israel is a terrorist state! Occupation no more! Israel is a terrorist state! Nothing the other one! We're wrong! We're done! Nothing the other one!
Of course, we mentioned Manchester already on the live stream. I'm slightly biased, do forgive me, but Manchester, of course, stands, as always, in solidarity with Palestine. And these marches, as in London, will continue until an unconditional ceasefire is announced, of course. There is the ongoing No Ceasefire, No Vote campaign that, regardless of a party, which party it is, if they want to win people's votes over, they'll have to call for an unconditional ceasefire again. We'll just head over to the latest on this escalation in the situation. Just a few details now. A lot of people weighing up what Israel's reaction to these attacks might be. As you can see, that picture of the warmongers themselves there, Biden and Netanyahu. Just a few details about these attacks. They were mostly carried out by drones. Around 300, I believe it was, missiles from drones were directed at Israel. Only a small percentage of those got through. Israel, of course, has this massive multi-billion-dollar defense system, the so-called Iron Dome. That was something that Hamas used unorthodox tactics to get through on October the 7th last year. These sort of regular run-of-the-mill, I say run-of-the-mill, these orthodox attacks from Iran only managed to get about 5% of the missiles through. So there is going to be obviously a response from Israel. They've been prodding and poking the surrounding nations, Lebanon as well, where of course there are no Hamas bases, despite what Israel propaganda will attempt to claim. It's pure provocation, so that they can have an excuse to retaliate now. In this instance, that seems to have gone perhaps the way that Israel planned it. Iran, by the way, is heavily armed nation, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware anyway, and that's where the real worry is. Israel is, of course, heavily armed, heavily financed and militarized by the United States of America and ourselves, as well as being a nuclear state, so perfectly legitimate cause for concern about where this escalation might lead. I will be revealing the result of the poll at the end of the live stream, so if you're just hopping on, just joining us, please do add your vote in the poll. So with the consulate being attacked by Israel, it was almost certain that Israel would stand its ground and retaliate. So what's going to be the next move? Let us know your thoughts in the chat, of course. Just skim through a few bits of this article. Israel's war cabinet has used a tried and trusted phrase to describe its next move against Iran. Israel would respond, quote, in the manner and at the time of our choosing, which has, of course, been mentioned before in reference to other conflicts. Well, it says that Benny Gantz, who's the opposition leader who joined the war cabinet after the Hamas attacks of 7th of October, emphasised the cohesion of Israel and its Western allies. Now, we've brought Benny Gantz up before on the channel. Israel, for a while, has seemed to have been ignoring the requests, as it is put officially, however you might want to interpret that, the requests of America. Most recently, America did, of course, abstain on that ceasefire vote, with the United Nations for the first time in history having been defied by Netanyahu himself, and many believe that the United States are trying to line up this guy, Benny Gantz, who's the opposition leader, to be the next Prime Minister of Israel. They seem to have had enough with how reckless Benjamin Netanyahu is, despite the fact that America are still willing to continue to support them financially and militarily. It wouldn't be the first time that America had chosen to depose the leader of a foreign nation, of course, lest we mention Henry Kissinger. So just bear that in mind as I continue to skim through the article. So there's a quote from Gantz here. Israel against Iran, the world against Iran, this is the result. That is a strategic achievement which we must leverage for Israel's security. The words that Mr. Gantz used did not rule out another attack on an Iranian target or a first overt Israeli strike inside Iran. Israel's hit Iran's nuclear program repeatedly with cyber attacks and the assassination of officials and scientists. But there might be time for the diplomatic response President Joe Biden wants from the meeting he's called of the G7, the 7 richest Western countries. the decision to attack was not coordinated with the Americans. This is one of the things. A lot of people are calling Israel out as a rogue state now. They are just being completely reckless, but still trying to play the victim, which is just abhorrent when you consider the amount of destruction that's happened in just the last 6 months. I don't know who they think they are, but the sense of exceptionalism that they seem to have seems to be just getting worse and worse. They think that they have the trump cards with the propaganda that they repeatedly use. It's been debunked, it's been called out for a very long time now. There's never anything new. It's just the same old, the same old stuff. So it's clear for all to see. But the article goes on to say Israel must have assessed the opportunity to kill senior commanders of Iran's IRGC, Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, was a risk worth taking. But I think the normal procedure there is that they have to get permission from Uncle Joe, and that's something that they've overlooked this time along. Very quickly, it was clear that Iran would respond. Iran's message was not transmitted with nudges and winks, but unequivocal statements from its supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So, two heavily armed countries apparently beginning to exchange blows now. And we know where this leads to wider and wider things. One part of this, if this does escalate, I think it's just so awful to see history repeating, just in slightly different circumstances. And it was a bigger attack than many analysts expected from Israel's most bitter enemy, the BBC article says. Plenty of reasons for many Israelis to expect a response from their own side. For the first time, Iran launched weapons, around 300 drones, as I said earlier, cruise and ballistic missiles from its own territory at Israel's. Almost all of them were stopped by formidable air defences, Israel's own considerable capabilities bolstered by the US, UK and Jordan. This is where your taxes are going, folks. Their allies, especially the US, helped them out enormously over the course of the night. President Joe Biden reiterated his promise, ironclad security for Israel, essentially saying, we've got your back. We will be going on to a protest against another Democrat, the Democrat leader of the House, as I mentioned, shortly. It's clear where the Democrats stand on this. Unfortunately, if Trump gets in, arguably, he'd be even worse. He'd facilitate Israel even more than Joe Biden has, even though billions of dollars are being donated to the IDF, as well as military aid from the UK. So that's a picture of some of the drones and missiles fired by Iran. So only around maybe 15 or 20 of those 300 would have gotten through the defences. They were all aimed at strategic military targets as well, by the way. Iran's response isn't anything similar to do with the way that Israel are treating Palestinians. So it just confirms there, yeah, Iran's been building up its rocket and missile forces for years, very heavily armed, as I said. It could have fired more weapons. Hezbollah in Lebanon would have joined in with an all-out offensive, and it did what it did not. And just on that point as well, Israel certainly risks opening up a conflict on multiple fronts, which never seems to work out well in terms of military history, of course. But not just going to talk about military strategy, of course. The best thing for this situation would, of course, be a lasting peace and ceasefire. But it just goes to emphasise how much Israel are provoking so many countries around them, with the exception of Jordan, who of course were mentioned as being Israeli allies earlier in the article. Netanyahu might draw some satisfaction with the way that the Iran attack removed Gaza from the headlines. Yeah, that as well. It gives him a respite from the humanitarian catastrophe in Israel's failure to achieve its war aims of freeing the hostages and crushing Hamas. It's been an utter failure for Israel, and it's turned into what you might call a quagmire there, but unfortunately the civilian casualties just keep rising. The promises that Netanyahu's made to his own people haven't been met. A lot of them are very critical that he hasn't got the hostages back. A lot of people have been calling him out for corruption. Unfortunately, not so many of them calling for a ceasefire itself, but certainly a lot of protests coming against Netanyahu, as we've mentioned in previous videos on the channel as well. Please do check those out if you've never seen any of our longer form content as well. Please put that on your watch list or add it to your bookmarks, however you prefer to remind yourself about what to watch next. So I think that, as always, Israel's reaction to this will be a knee-jerk reaction. It will certainly be overkill, for want of a better adjective, because that's the way it always is with Israel. They like to sort of they're bullies, basically. You know, they're fascist bullies, and that's what they're trying to be, in provoking these other surrounding countries, and that's what they've continued to do, and push down on Palestinians for 75 years now. Just a couple of points about the end of the article before we move on to some more clips. What's not changed is that the Americans want to find a way to stop the slide to an all-out Middle East war. Red lines have been crossed: Israel's attack on a diplomatic site and Iran's direct attack on Israel. Immediately, some Israeli right-wingers demand a response. Those calls will not stop. Yeah, of course. They can't launch an attack on a diplomatic site and still try to play the victim. These excuses just don't wash anymore. The job of the diplomats at the G7 will be to prevent the region entering a damaging wider conflict. The slide has been slow, but also a steady one, and in one direction towards disaster in the 6 months since Hamas attacked Israel. If Israel takes President Biden's advice not to hit back, the Middle East might be able to take a breath. It's by no means certain that this is the end of this dangerous episode. Of course, just recently Israel announced that they were pulling a lot of troops out of Gaza, leaving southern Gaza, leaving just one battalion behind. A lot of people hoped that that would really bring down the casualty rate, that this situation might start to de-escalate somewhat, and that fundamentally, importantly, that more of the aid could get through in abundance, whereas it's been so difficult to get aid through in the past because of IDF attacks on convoys, excuse me, etc. And now this. So I'm sure that Israel will go for it again. Whether they will try to attack military installations or just launch a general attack against the civilian population of Iran, who knows? But if it is the latter of those, I think this already escalating situation could be stepped up another gear. Please do let us know what you think about that in the chat as well. So we'll go back to the clips. And just as we see that clip from the Manchester protest again, I mentioned this demonstration in the States. There have been a couple actually. The first one is from Code Pink, who've already been very vocal in calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And one of the protesters there, or a protester there, I should say, was dragged out of the room while he was singing a song about the situation there. You have to admire this gentleman's tenacity, even as he was being dragged away, that he managed to get the message out as well and continue singing despite being dragged away by a few burly security guards. So let's just see that protest.
Campaign finance genocide.
All right,
That's
one warning only. Order.
Yeah, this in Congress, by the way, as well. That's also I should have mentioned that before I started playing the clip. That's another reason it's equally impressive. What you'll notice as well is the robotic speaker there just continues to bang his gavel and say in a very dull and monotone fashion that the House will come to order while this brave gentleman continues his protest.
If you won't take their money, AIPAC will see you through this campaign.
Committee will come to order.
Genocide. That's why children.
The committee will come to order.
Oh, expose all those golden bribes.
Committee will come to order.
Campaign finance genocide. Over 14,000 children are dead because you have bribed by the American Israel.
Committee will come to order.
I think that's worth another play just one more time.
Campaign finance genocide.
All right,
That's
one
why
warning
children
only. Order.
If you won't take their money, AIPAC will see you through this campaign.
Committee will come to order.
Genocide. That's why children.
The committee will come to order.
Oh, expose all those golden bribes.
Committee will come to order.
Campaign finance genocide. Over 14,000 children are dead because you have bribed by the American Israel.
Committee.
It's mentioned AIPAC there, of course, the massive pro-Israel lobby. These are the absolute, bastards who managed to sway politicians in America to move in favour of Israel. I just think he did really well to continue that as well. And his references to members of Congress getting screwed if they don't obey AIPAC is certainly true as well. And that's where most of the lobby money goes to, is American Congress. That's how they get these massive amounts of funding, etc. A lot of money, So well done that man. This next one followed an announcement by Democratic leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, who is responding to the Iranian attack on Israel with a statement he put out, and a lot of Democrats didn't take too kindly to that. In fact, there followed a protest during one of his speeches in which multiple participants got up and called him out for it. I think this was quite a well-coordinated protest as well. The fact that initially it does appear to be a similar situation to the one you've just seen, with just one individual standing up to protest, but in fact there were multiple people who took it in turn to call out Hakeem Jeffries for his support of Israel. This is the statement. So he says, Iran, a sworn enemy of the United States, has launched an unprecedented attack against our democratic ally, the State of Israel. America's committed to Israel's security is ironclad and unbreakable. Iran will not succeed. We stand with the people of Israel during this moment of significant challenge. So Hakeem Jeffries certainly not being in support of Palestine or sitting on the fence very firmly in the Israel camp there. But as I said, a lot of people didn't take too kindly to that at all. Let's check that out.
President Biden's leadership, Democrats,
you are a war criminal.
sleeping down! Down! Sit down!
Countries, you use the guise of democracy and diplomacy to do the bidding of a racist, white supremacist, imperialist government.
Getting a bill for $14 billion to kill people in Gaza. They've murdered 14,000 children.
People together, others.
Here you go.
We believe in
Take it out! No peace! Take it out! Justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! Justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
I think that was really well done. Yeah. They've got to be called out at every turn. These protests have got to continue just as much as the marches. People have to do everything that they can. Because if it can happen to Palestine, it can happen to any nation in the world. This is perhaps the biggest injustice of modern times in terms of oppression, in terms of occupation. So people have to keep calling it out. People don't have any other choice. Just going to play it again. I want to count exactly how many people stood up there. So this is the first person who stood up.
President Biden's leadership. Democrats.
You're a war criminal! How do you sleep at night? Down! Sit down! Sit down! You support genocide! How do you look at sit down?
Countries, you use the guise of democracy and diplomacy to do the bidding of a racist, white supremacist, imperialist
Take it out!
Getting a bill for $14 billion to kill people in Gaza. They've murdered 14,000 children.
People together, others.
Here you go.
We believe in
Take it out! No peace! Take it out! Justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! Justice, no peace! No justice!
There's like 5 or 6 different people just managed, the very small amount of people you can count it on your hands and manage to disrupt the whole meeting. Of course they get dragged out. I think that's very sorry to see that people were just calling for them. Other members of the audience were just calling for them to be pulled out, as because they want to continue to listen to whatever Jeffries is saying up there on the podium. How can they ignore? How can they ignore that situation? I think that's they should probably have a bit of a look at themselves. Especially being Americans, especially with the amount of support that America are giving to Israel. It concerns every single American. And I guess the same goes for the UK, this is where your taxes go. These are the kind of things that your elected representatives are apparently happy continuing to see. So yeah, do what you can. Do what you can to protest against this. And if you do get an opportunity to speak truth directly to power, as these people have, then I suggest that you take it. And there'll be a lot more of that to come as well. Just going to try and lighten things up slightly now with a look at well-known UK comedian Jonathan Pye. I'm sure you've seen before, but if not, is of course very popular. Check him out here. A political parody comedian, and this is his latest 2 cents on legislation in the UK against just moving away from that Middle East situation now onto homelessness and the fact that the genius Tories have come up with a great scheme to do something about homelessness. And before you get too excited, don't worry, they've not announced a massive plan to start building social housing, of course. Oh, no. They just continue to sort of beat down upon homeless people by threatening to give them extra fines if they don't smell pleasant enough. Of course, homeless people are notoriously wealthy and can afford a £2,500 fine. I believe that's what the plan is, to do so. But these fines being imposed upon homeless people have been going on for quite a while now under the Tory party. But it only goes to show the lack of common sense, not only the lack of empathy for homeless people that they're not doing anything about. There's more land in the UK dedicated to golf courses than there is social housing, of course, ever since Thatcher started the great sell-off with that. But for them just to expect homeless people to be able to pay four-figure sums as a fine, just really sums it up for me, I guess. And Jonathan Pye puts it together very well, so let's hear from him.
However, some of the criminal justice bill's proposals have caused much consternation, not just amongst homeless charities, but also among many leading Conservative figures. Let's take a look at the details. Did you know this? Before the 2019 election, the Tories pledged to end rough sleeping in England by 2024. And I thought, wow, come on, let's do it. Let's do it. In 2022, Parliament voted to repeal the Vagrancy Act of 1824 with something a bit more, modern. And I thought, finally, a government that is finally going to seriously tackle this issue. Finally, we won't still be treating the homeless like they did in Victorian times. But when they pledged to stop homelessness, I didn't realise they were going to stop it by banging them all up in prison. They want to replace the Napoleonic-era Vagrancy Act with a law that is more Dickensian than, well, Dickens could have imagined. A law that not only criminalises rough sleepers and raises the prospect of them being sent to prison, but now rough sleepers could be given a fine of up to £2,500 if they smell bad. I mean, you gotta laugh, right? You gotta laugh, or you'll throw a fucking brick. The first time in British history you can get a criminal conviction for not washing, which is something the Health Secretary denied on national television yesterday, and in denying it, she lied to your fucking face, because it's in the fucking bill. These people smell because they haven't washed. They haven't washed because they don't have access to fresh water, a bit like in the third world. Yeah, more homeless people die of dehydration in the summer than of cold exposure in the winter. Easy access to clean water is a basic global human right, and yet this government is seriously thinking about criminalising not having access to a shower. And that might not end up in the final bill, but who came up with that in the first place? Tackle homelessness by fining them £2,500 because they honk of piss and it's getting right up my middle-class nostrils. Where are they going to find the money? For a start, there's only so many big issues you can sell, right? Everyone hates homelessness. Everyone, but the Tories, they've gone one step further. They hate the homeless. They are no better than common criminals. Rough sleepers are not a social care issue. They are, as written in this law, a nuisance. This government thinks they should be punished. People who are cold and thirsty and, yes, a bit smelly, who are statistically probably an addict with a very good chance they have serious mental health issues, they should be punished. How is this a solution to the problem? And more to the point, why is this such a problem? Social care in this country has been stripped to the bone. Local homelessness services have been cut by £1 billion a year and have lost 9,000 beds since 2010. As a consequence, rough sleeping has increased 165% since 2010. The number of people dying whilst homeless has increased by 51%. Yet this government's attitude is, we're not to blame, they are. It's their lifestyle choice. It's not our fault, it's their fault. No! There is always a reason they are there. They all have a story to tell. They haven't failed, they have been failed by their parents, by their education, their local authority, or more than likely in this instance, they've been failed by this government. Rough sleeping is not a lifestyle choice for those sleeping rough. It is a choice of this government. It's been a choice ever since David Cameron declared that we were all in it together before implementing a brutal and sustained assault on the poorest, most vulnerable people in his so-called big society. And whilst we have obscene levels of destitution and hardship in this country with record numbers sleeping rough on the streets, a near billionaire resides in number 10. Nasty, evil fuckers. Well, it's always a difficult tightrope for any government to walk, looking tough on antisocial behaviour, whilst not looking...
The following clip may contain some strong language. Should have probably said that a little bit earlier. Yeah, just a quick plug for his live tour as well. Do check him out if you can. I've seen him live and he's brilliant, fantastic. Jonathan Pye there. So that was his latest 2 cents on that bill. Great stuff as always. But don't worry, you know, Labour are going to get in at the next election, apparently. That's what they're saying. They're going to win by a massive landslide, apparently. That's what they're saying. I certainly have a few things to say about that I won't get into at the moment. But, yeah, you know, Starmer's going to sort it out, and I'm sure Rachel Reeves will also. What do you say, Rachel? Rachel? No, still nothing from her. So, yeah, that's what you get to expect from after the next election. We're going to pop back over to Keith's Lounge as well. Just as we start to bring things to a close on the live stream. Thanks a lot for being here tonight. Yeah, just a quick reminder about that channel update. These streams come to you ad-free when you're watching live. If you're watching on a replay, excuse me, there are ads, but recently, I'm just looking into it, the live streams have been demonetized, so please do support the channel as much as you can. Thanks a lot for those of you who have joined up with the membership program. Thanks a lot for your continued support. If you've not done so, please do consider checking out those two options. Great perks from just 99p. And if you're watching on a replay, do visit our Buy Me a Coffee page or hit the super thanks if you like what you've seen this evening. Just a quick mention on Keith, as we've been talking a lot about the escalation in the Middle East this evening. He apparently seems to have discovered the magic money tree, and he says that he would increase military spending by 30%. So that would obviously require a large amount of money. I'm not sure where he intends to find that one from, unless he has, of course, realised, as well as Rachel Reeves, that the Bank of England is a thing, and a country can borrow it. This country can borrow from itself in that fashion in order to commit money to public investment, etc. Perhaps the nationalisation of public infrastructure, for example. What do you think about that, Keith? No, not his kind of thing. Maybe not. But the only thing he is concerned with is military spending. He's definitely not a right-winger, though. You can certainly trust Keith. I hope someone has called the RSPCA just to look after the dog in the background. So, just wanted to mention that also. But no, seriously, thanks a lot for joining us here on the stream tonight. Thanks a lot for your comments. Thanks a lot for joining the chat, to those who have, and if you're watching on a replay, please do add a comment. As I said, I'll do my best to get back to as many comments as possible. Back next Sunday as well, but between now and then, we've got the PMQ's live stream as well on Wednesdays. Keep an eye out for that. For members as well, keep your eye out for members only videos and members only live streams. We had one just recently as well. You can check that out. We've got a playlist as well for members, so they're all there in one place. Save you having to scroll through the full video list. And yeah, please keep an eye out for our other content as well through the week. Your comments are always appreciated, I should say. We've had some really insightful ones recently, so please do continue letting us know what you think about the topics in hand. Vicky Clee, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining the channel with the membership. Please enjoy your perks. Yeah, thanks a lot for being here as well. That's great. Thanks for your support. Yeah, so we'll be back next time. We'll see what develops with all of those situations I've talked about this evening. I'll try and keep you up to speed with videos, etc. As I said. So until next time, look after yourselves, everybody. I hope my left eye will be seeing you soon. I hope you have a fantastic week. But I can't really say the same for Keith. Good night.